Welcome everyone to our webinar. I welcome you all during this webinar that we're going to do a panel discussion. Before we start off, I have a few things to go through to make sure that we all keep track on how we follow, how we are going through this webinar. By saying this, if you join the meeting, please make sure you all mute yourself and that you switch off your webcam. This will make sure that the panel who uses their webcam will be placed in the right streaming mode, so that will help us. If you have any questions during the meeting, please put them in the chat. I will keep an eye on that, and I will make sure I will follow up with the panel at the end of this webinar to make sure you get an answer on all your questions that you have. The panels will do a presentation, and at the end we'll have a Q&A. You can either wait until we reach that Q&A to go off mute and turn on your webcam if you want to ask your questions, to make sure that the panel will actually give you the right answers or opportunities that you might need. I will make sure I will admit another person. All right. For now, I would like for you all to introduce you to our panel. So first off, we have Alex, and Alex is a Senior Director Program Lead for the Asia region of Automation Anywhere. Alex is currently based in Singapore and has a wealth of experience in the technology and business process outsourcing space. He is passionate about consulting businesses on how they can use technologies to improve customer experience and operations efficiently. In his personal time, and I've seen the photos, Alex loved to spend time with his wife and kids, biking, and also he is a really impressive color pencil painting artist. If you want to find out more, just give a shout to Alex and he will probably show some of his pictures that he's made. It's really impressive to see. Our next panel lit is Gary. Gary is a business manager at Assurity Consulting, and he leads the Assurity's Hyper Automation Delivery Framework, which is an RPA implementation model that places the business case for automation at the front and center of all engagements. He is an avid photographer and ran a highly successful studio before joining the dark side of consulting businesses. And our third panel member is Julie. Julie is a chairperson at the Customer Contact Network New Zealand. It's a mouthful. And for short, it is CCNNZ. She is also the National Customer Delivery Manager Service at Tower Insurance. In her capacity as a chairperson for CCNNZ, Julie leads the development of strategies, event management to help promote CCNNZ in the country. A real people leader, Julie is passionate about transferring and sharing her knowledge in operations management with people. In her personal time, Julie loves to walk her French bulldog, which is named Olive, and she reads a lot of bestsellers, and she watches Netflix every now and then. Just a fun fact, Olive, her French bulldog, has also her own Instagram account. So if you're keen on following a French bulldog on Instagram, let Julie know and she will give you the handles for her Instagram later on. So welcome panel. It's good to have you here. I'm curious how we are going to show your presentations, and I'm curious to understand more around this framework and ways of working. For now, everyone, welcome again to the webinar. I just added a few more people. Before we start off, I would like to do a quick scan on how to get a bit of more impression of what your current knowledge is. And I'm going to launch a poll question. I'm going to do it right now, and I will ask all participants to click on the answer. Just to see if I'm good to go. You will see now the first question. Are you familiar with how robotic process automation or intelligent process automation solutions can benefit your contact center? Check. We'll see still results coming in. Okay, we need a bit more with 20 out of 33. So everyone please vote. Okay, I don't see anything coming in, so we'll leave it with that. And this is the first result. So that gives you, Alex, input for your first presentation. So I will hand it over to you. I will stop sharing the poll and we'll come back later on. So we're now going to listen to the first presentation of Alex. Once he's done, Gary will take over. During the presentations, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I will make sure I will follow up with them. After both presentations, we will have another poll question for you. And from that point, we dive into the Q&A. In the meantime, enjoy, and it's up to you, Alex. I will stop sharing my screen so you can take over.
Lovely, thank you.
Awesome.
All right, so here we go. First of all, thank you for everyone to join in. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm based in Singapore. It's still on the morning time. So I looked at the poll results, and I believe that about 45% of you somewhat know what it does for a contact center. I'm sure that this will be very informative, will give you some use cases and ideas of how to be able to extend it much more. There are still about 20% of the people who don't understand that well, or might not even know robotics as much. So I will try and touch upon basics of robotics to be able to give them a good blend. And there are about 35% of people who they know it. I'm sure some of the things that I would be able to share will give them much more insights into what's coming next and what's the future for this, and specifically about IPA. With that, let me start. I want to start with this picture. And I was told some time back that basketball might not be one of the favorites in this part of the world. But the fact is, who wouldn't know Air Jordan, right? So Air Jordan is one of the most famous sports personality across the world. This picture, however, is one of the best in his 15 years odd career that he had. Why? The first thing is that this was game number 6 in 1998 of the NBA Finals. Many of you might even have seen The Last Dance on Netflix, right? So you might have got the context very well. The important part here is that there is 6.6 seconds on the timer board. The score at this time is Chicago Bulls, which Jordan represents, and Utah Jazz, with Chicago Bulls at 85 and Utah Jazz at 86. If you don't know about the game, if this shot goes in, Chicago Bulls gets 2 points, which means they will win. Michael Jordan from the Bulls has taken the shot. And this is why, the Air Jordan also symbolizes him. He's midair. The ball is midair. Now, how critical is this shot halfway there? Actually, it is one of the most pivotal time for Michael. Why? This could be his 6th championship win. 2, 3 championships back to back. And it all rests on what happens next. This will eventually be called the last shot. All of us know how it ends. He makes it, wins it for the Bulls and himself. An epic moment. Honestly, it wasn't just pivotal for Jordan. Now you may ask, who else? Here comes Fernando Medina. A few of you might even know him. He is the photographer who gets the credit for capturing this epic moment for us to cherish forever. He, in his own words, once said, "Who could foresee a poor refugee from Cuba who would end up with the opportunity of photographing Michael Jordan taking his last shot as the Bull to win the 1998 NBA Finals and make good of that opportunity?" Fernando Medina's opportunity. Let's keep that word opportunity in our minds. That's the pivotal point. Medina also had to get the exact timing, which was midway for the ball, with the timer board and the audience in frame. If that wasn't enough, each of this had to be in focus. You know, there is Gary, you could ask him how difficult it is to take a photograph like this later on. But the fact is that there were 3 pictures of this moment, out of which one was out of focus. The other was not the right frame or the angle. Let's think about the technology available to the photographers then, compared to now. That is exactly why we are here, to get a grasp on the automation technology set that is available to each of our frontline reps to ensure that they are able to take their best shot and never miss the opportunity. With that, let's look at one important factor. To understand what's that we need and the relevance of automation, we have to look at personal productivity drivers, right? Especially in the digital world, and how it has developed over time. The first quantum leap was with personal computers. Everyone who is on the digital working space has a personal computer today. Then came the mobile phones or the smartphones. Most of us might be having even 1 or 2 mobile phones today. And forecasted to be next is IPA. What's IPA? IPA, in simple words, is intelligent process automation. It just means, in simple words, automation so that every employee is at their best with their job. But what's important is for us to be able to understand how relevant and how to go about it. In this presentation, I'll be asking a lot of questions. I won't be expecting answers from you because I will be answering it for you. The first one is, automation technologies have been there for 20+ years, but still there exists a lot of manual processes. Why? To answer that, let's look at how the systems are automated. The typical approach would be to have a programmer sit on the system, do some coding. It satisfies approximately 20-25% of the systems that are available today. Technology, digital systems. So to be able to cover the remaining 80, do we have everybody become a programmer? The answer is no. The fact is, since the time the IT adoptions have started, the gap between what is automated and what should be automated still exists, and it keeps increasing and keeps that mark of 20% there. It actually increases more because of our need to have the best of the breed systems, IT systems. So what do? We put manual labor to it in either form of, people sitting in organizations trying to bridge the gap between unsystematic format to a systematic format, etc. In one way, this was also the genesis of BPOs, right? The fact is that Automation Anywhere itself has over 500 different technology IT systems within us. We work on Workday, which is connected to the SFDC, which is connected to the Oracle, etc., etc. To mitigate this, is what we bring in IPA. What it does, it simulates human behavior with intelligent software. Now, to be able to understand this, we have to look at how do humans do the work today. In today's workforce, we have people who do certain tasks. Think about those tasks and analyze those tasks. And of course, have coffee, like Gary likes it. But I'm sure most of you participants might like beer, right? So any one of them. Important to understand is RPA, or robotic process automation, does those structured job. It's not the intelligent version, it's RPA. Cognitive and analytics with AI technologies think and analyze. Together, they are called IPA, or in Automation Anywhere's words, digital workforce. The important thing to understand now is, why do we employ digital workforce? In fact, I'm not going to read out these are important for you to know, but let me give you an example. Most of the digital native companies, say that be Amazon, Airbnb, Uber, Grab, etc., are also utilizing extensively these digital workforce to get their digital transformation in space, in the reality. Now that we have gone through the relevance of what automation is and the kind of ROI based on these items that you see, let's get to the meat of the session. Okay. We were talking about pivotal point. So let's stay with that and look at those opportunities or situations that happens with the customer service or technical service people in the contact centers. They have interactions all through, maybe any channel or many channel. There are, in the last survey that I realized, that there are about 18 different channels that a customer can reach out to the businesses, right? There are pivotal points in each of these conversations or interaction. They have to listen to the customer. They have to maneuver a lot of complex processes, at times even work out offers for cross-sell, upsell, all but adhering to the company, legal, policies and regulations. Whatever that may be, the channel, the process, the challenges would be similar with one or many together. In today's time, we have contact centers using, Citrix systems, CRM systems, billing systems, or they might have even built up custom-built BPM solutions painstakingly. But the reality is that the nuances and the processes keep changing. And so is the expectation from those frontline agents of agility, or to deliver great customer satisfaction. If that wasn't enough, most of the times they have to go through all of these interactions systemically, which means one after another, to make it the perfect shot every time. Now, this is exactly where intelligent process automation comes into play. It's like a virtual assistant that automates data entry or validation works across all these multiple applications. In fact, it can even guide on the next best action to be taken. Invaluable for the new people on the floor. Maybe even reducing the training times that you have to spend with them. It's a collaboration tool for exception handling. It can be having machine learning models to help these frontline people deliver that great customer experience efficiently. In conjunction with IQBot, which is Automation Anywhere's native cognitive technology, it understands unstructured data. And Discovery Bot, which makes finding automation opportunities very easy, as simple as creating a draft automation automatically. In simple words, you initiate to record, the Discovery Bot records the step as taken by a human, and the system creates the bot. In fact, this is the most comprehensive digital workforce platform in the industry, giving you access to even pure native cloud system, which means no investments on hardware, and access to one of the best marketplace for bots, ready to deploy bots from the bot store. I will talk in detail about the productivity suite a little later. So how are these relevant to contact center? That's the topic that we're discussing, right? How do we make sense of all of these? And when do we get onboarded with them? For that, let's look at how a typical contact center's maturity model works. A typical contact center gets a query from the customer. It can be a product or a systemic defect. I wanted to keep it simple. It can be related to product or service, etc. So it's product or systemic defect. There is an interaction that happens. Can be any channel. The issue is resolved and you continue to have a loyal customer, which is what we need, right? Customer satisfaction. At early stages, what people do is to be able to bring in some kind of self-service automations. An automation that provides data population on the screen based on, say, identifiers or key elements that are being discussed during the interaction. I will be showing a demo specific to this. Contact centers then can add more automation, surface automation for fetching maybe customer journey information, say to predict what's going to happen next. Even in call automation like case creations, or even help with after call work. All the steps that were taken by the individual can be summarized and automatically uploaded into either the Salesforce systems or emailed back to the customer. Organizations are even adding great bit of machine learning capabilities for situations of exception handling, which we call it as team automation. Eventually, all of them implementing perfect scenarios, like using IQ Bot, which I mentioned is our native cognitive technology, which picks out OCR data, takes out unstructured data from OCR, which is non-digital format, uses it, or NLP for chat, or speech analytics for voice, to enhance the input data that can be used by IPA to orchestrate in being either proactive or at least preemptive. What's most important for you to note is that this is orchestration. What RPA is doing is to be able to orchestrate all these different moving parts to make it effective. Now let me take this and show you in a call flow environment, what is the impact of this? You can start with maybe omni-channel integrations, right? Where you fetch information from either using an API or a web service and get journey information from it. You could also pick up interactive forms technology, which is actually a single pane view of all the essential customer data which is required for the interaction. As I said, I will show this in the demo. Human bot collaboration, which was built for team collaboration. May that be collaborations between humans and bots for exceptions, or bots with bots, like providing exceptional handling capabilities for native automation, like Salesforce, Excel, Google Sheet, Google Hangouts, etc. It even gives support to build systems for next best guidance, actions that have been taken by the individual. To sum it all up, we can have the attended bots even perform the ACW tasks, like creating and updating into multiple systems, predefined notes, etc. Remember, these automations are really the building blocks or gateway into AI ML utilization. Now let's take a deeper look into interactive forms. As I had mentioned before, it's a single plane view, which is relevant for that interaction. It can be built your own way, even for a specific client of yours. or a specific process. It's simple drag and drop can make the form. Linking them at the back end to a bot gets you information all in one place. In this case, I can even pick up mobile numbers from an IVR. I can even pick up customer ID from Invoicely's or SAP's or any other system that you might have. If you want to have shipping status from, say, external courier companies, you can pick it up. How about having a shortcut there for the most used actions? May that be to affect a hold order on, say, Salesforce or inventory management system, all from one place. Now let's look at the demo.
Customer service agents aren't productive and operational efficiency is to blame. 80% of them say that they must access multiple screens to support customers. Why? Because customer data exists in multiple applications. When a customer calls in to get the status of his order and to complain why it's late, the front office agent looks up Salesforce to find his order number. He then looks in the Oracle database to see if his order is in stock and connects to FedEx to see if a shipping label has been created. That takes time the customer spends on hold while the rep goes through this process. These large wait times result in high drop calls and low first call resolution rates, a big problem for the front office. Automation Anywhere changes that by enabling the rep to see all the data he needs on one screen without having to toggle between applications, enabling the rep to spend that time on improving the customer experience. Let's walk through a demo of how we make this possible for our users. You see this form in front of you. Looks simple and easy to understand, not unlike the forms you fill in every day. Except this has a superpower. When the agent fills in the first and last name of the customer that called in, the form fills automatically with the other info. So the agent can bring up in seconds all the information he needs for the customer on the phone. And it's a breeze to create. Users drag and drop elements into a form and easily connect a bot to each element. This allows the form to pull data from multiple systems and present it to the agent on one screen. And as always, data can be picked up from all sources: ERP systems, Microsoft applications, web-based applications, and unstructured sources like handwritten docs and emails via our award-winning IQBot solution. Now, these forms work the other way as well. If the customer wants to update his address, the agent can type it in the form. A submit button will update the customer's address in all applications connected to the form. Agents can use one form or multiple forms based on the task in front of them. Once created, these forms can be deployed to one agent or all agents immediately through A2019's role-based deployment. Anyone can create these forms. Automation Anywhere's focus has always been the business user, both in the front and back office. And these interactive forms technology is another step in that direction. All your customer data in one interactive form. Create your own with Automation Anywhere.
Lovely. With that, all of you would have got the sense of the power and simplicity of these forms. Now, our organization's goal is to be able to make work more human, which means to take the robotic work out of you. But for that, it is important for us to understand and know what makes human human. There are three types of skills that I want to talk to you about today, which is, the first one is the process-oriented skills. These are repetitive, structured tasks. Then there is this quantitative skills like numeric or logical in nature. And finally, the cross-functional skills, which are related to creativity or our social ability. The fact is that eventually each of these will get affected at different ratios. It's nothing new. We have seen this happening in the first, second, third industrial revolution, automation in steel industry, agriculture, electronics, supported the different respective industrial revolutions, giving rise to today's digital automation, and helped move human being up the skill ladder. Let me take a pause and give you something to listen to. I'm going to pause this for a few seconds and explain this to you. This is IAMUS. It's a computer cluster creating contemporary classic music, entirely computer generated. In fact, this is the first complete album solely composed by a computer, but recorded by human musicians. In this case, the London Symphony. In fact, Tom Service, a British writer and a music journalist, said in reference to this piece called as the Hello World, all of you can go to Google or YouTube after this and listen to it in much detail and learn about it also. It is, he said, IAMUS's Hello World ought to pose existential question about the integrity of musical composition, to blow the holes in fallacy that every note a human composer writes comes from a wellspring of emotion and deep thoughts unique to our consciousness. The point that I bring here is that here there is a certain percentage of even reasoning skills which will find coexistence between bots and human. I will play this for a little bit more and then go to the next slide. Rest at your leisure. With that, now let me take you through something which is very close to my heart, and I'm sure for most of you also. We have had the situation during this pandemic scenario that we had to work from home. So let me try and first bring in some of the use cases related to this. And if I don't share that, it will not be justifiable from my side, right? So let me explain what happened here. Here, we have a contact center having to deal with data privacy issue. When people are working from home or work at home, nomenclature as what you use, so I get both. And they don't have an efficient way to even monitor the progress or the productivity or adherence of these frontline people. What we did is to deploy the interactive form and attached a bot at the back end to fetch the PII information. In fact, late yesterday evening, I was having a conversation with a client, and he said that the client has given an application which has all the information. The agent does not require all that information while having the conversation with the client. And there are PII sensitive information which is not needed to be in front. We can't make the change on the system. They said, can we make a BPM solution or an application to be able to only pick up data which are relevant? Interactive forms was the answer. Even if you have sensitive information on a particular screen which you want to be able to mask, you can do that with attended robotics. Now, among all the multitude of use cases that Automation Anywhere and our partners have deployed in contact centers, I want you to have a snapshot of just a small bit of it, which I wanted to show. But I want you to focus onto one specific area, which is WFM's RTA teams. For some of you who don't know what is an RTA, it is real-time adherence. These are Minority Report. I'm sure that you would have seen Minority Report, where there are multiple screens and an agent is looking at who's going to do the next foul or murder or something wrong. This is exactly the same scenario. There is a person who's standing there. He has scheduled the frontliners to sit and come in a specific time, etc. But every 15 minutes or a 10-minute, according to the interval that they have set, it shows red alert if he's out of schedule or out of adherence. Now, imagine this. The computer vision technology is being utilized here to be able to understand any alerts that are happening. All the actions that are taken for this by the individual who would have been sitting here would have been picking up the phone and calling up the manager and saying that your person is out of adherence, can we move somebody else, etc. All that is done in real time. But all of that goes through a specific rule book. Bot was created to be able to look at those vision with computer vision and take necessary actions. Imagine, for one of our clients, numerous RTA screens with thousands of FTEs, the RTA is having to physically eyeball each one of them. Being able to make it very, very simple, not to be able to have human do robotic tasks. With that, I thank you, everyone. And if you need to know more, please feel free to reach out to Ashwati or us, and we will help you with that. Over to you, Gary, from here.
Thanks, Alex. Awesome. For everyone on the call, if you have any questions around what Alex was presenting, please put them in the chat, or otherwise keep on hold on them until we reach the Q&A. Gary, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Alex. It was exceptionally informative, as always. Now, I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me 1 second, everybody. And while I'm doing that, thanks very much, everybody, for taking the time out to have a listen to what we have to say here. Hopefully it's of some use and it sparks some thoughts that we can discuss over time. My little session here is only 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm really focusing on what we believe is probably the critical part of this whole process, which is before you get to the technology, look at the business case. And really, it's just a bit of a reaffirmation to start the investigative process in the right kind of way. So that's what I'm going to be covering. I'm hoping that everybody can see my screen. Marcel, can you just yeah, cool, excellent, thank you. Just thought I'd quickly give you a quick intro to Assurity. For those of you that don't know us, we're a delivery consultancy established about 15 years ago. In fact, almost exactly 15 years ago, because our birthday was actually on Tuesday, and we shared a little whiskey or two on that date. And there's about 280 of us across the country. We have an office where I'm based here in Auckland, where there's about 70 of us. Our head office is in Wellington, and there's probably the thick end of 200 down there, and then the balance down in Christchurch. So we really do cover the whole country. We started off as a software testing organization, and that's really still where the big majority of our business comes from, that kind of area. But over the years, we've expanded our portfolio of services, and where we sit today is that we have pretty much an end-to-end consulting service for taking you from customer idea right the way through to implementation of a solution and to making sure that solution works in the way that you intended. So as examples there up on screen, I've already mentioned testing, but Agile is very much in our DNA, and it's our default way of delivering solutions. We have one of the leading DevOps teams in the country. doing great guns, mainly, well, based largely out of Wellington, but with some presence across the rest of the country as well. Our design thinking practice is expanding at an alarming rate at the moment and doing great stuff around customer experience and voice of the customer. And then we feed from that into probably one of the most important parts of my part of this presentation, which is into our business analysis and our Lean BA practice. Touching on education, we are the leading IC Agile education provider in the country. And then of course there's my little bit here, which is the intelligent process automation part of the business. And that's, I lead that practice. So the way that we kind of organize ourselves with these services is behind what we've seen over the years and what have developed into the key customer challenges. And those are around innovation. So how do we innovate products that your customers will love? And that has some relevance to what we're talking about today, through to modernizing technology. Again, we're talking about that today, but you know, how do we modernize your technology to enable delivery of those digital products at pace? And the at pace is really important here. And finally, new ways of working, and that's where our agile practice fits into that. And that's all about enabling a high performance culture to provide some degree of agility and adaptivity to your business. So the other thing to mention here as well is that our NPS score is absolutely world class. It's one of the things we're exceptionally proud of, is the feedback we get from our clients is way above the industry average or the industry benchmark. And if you can see down the bottom there, New Zealand industry benchmark within the IT services industry hovers around 0. With us at 54, we're way ahead of that. We really are truly world class. And in fact, in the business consultancy industry, benchmark is actually in the negative space. So we're around about -22. So you can see it's something we're exceptionally proud of. And what is not on this screen is our employee NPS rating. It tends to hover around that kind of level as well. So we very much exist to delight both internally and externally, and we're very successful at doing that. As far as intelligent process automation is concerned, there's two kind of key parts to what I've just shown you there. Yes, the technology is important, but in the context of what you guys do in your contact center roles, what you're trying to do is to delight your own clients. And we're doing a lot of work at the moment around human-centered design and helping you to understand what the needs are of your customers, so that when we get to this part of the project, to the actual implementation of technology, we know that we're providing a solution which supports the needs of your customers. And that in itself is a great first step, because you're on the front foot and you know that what you're doing really does meet the needs of the people that are most important to you. And our intelligent process automation practice does include our business analysis function. It also clearly involves our partnership with Automation Anywhere, and also many of the other services that I described before. But obviously this is the thing that's the most important to all of that. We're trying to help you delight your customers, because that's good for everybody. So coming back to the business case, which is really the key thing of what I wanted to talk about. One of our clients is a transport services provider in New Zealand, and the issue that we were called in to help them with was around the response times and the service levels that were coming out of their service desk were not at the level that they wanted them to be. And so they asked us to come in and look at the problems. Initially, this was an automation. It was driven by a desire to look at automation technology. But in actual fact, what we said to them was, look, if we come into this with a lens that says automation or process automation is the answer, now what's the question? Then we were going to be potentially blinkered in our activities. And so we discussed that with them, and we said, look, let's just come in with a view of process. Let's just look at your processes, and then we can make some recommendations out of that. And sure, some of them will be automation, will be the solution. Some of them, however, may be as simple as behavioral changes or process optimization. And this particular organization has a goal of a zero-touch service desk. And so that is the primary lens that we really went in there with, which is how do we make sure that that calls are being resolved as early as possible, and so they don't actually get as far as the service desk if possible. So our approach was very, very much about this first stage, and this is where we're at the moment, which is the discovery and the analysis. So this is where we're going in there and saying to our clients, before you even think about technology, look at the problem and quantify that problem and come up with a robust business case so that the rest of the process flows neatly from that. So we are looking at what the customers need out of this. We're looking at the current as-is process, and we're looking at defining what a to-be should look like. We're quantifying the issue, and we're working with that client so that we know the cost of doing things right now. We know that there is a reduced cost or an improved service level at the end of that, and then we're building out a rough costing around the solution and the build out of that solution. So it's not until we've got that business case that we then go on to that solution design. And really that solution design and then the final implementation of the solution, they just flow neatly because we have such a robust business case at the very start of all of this lot. And the monitoring side of it that I mentioned at the end there is also incredibly important. If you just implement a solution and then hope that it's going to give you what you wanted at the start, then that's going to cause you some problems. And so one of the things that we recommend, and one of the great facets of the Automation Anywhere technology, is that you've got the ability to drill quite deeply into how the technology is performing and whether it is indeed giving you those returns that you asked for, or that we calculated at the start. And it allows you to make those changes if it's not delivering in the way that we expected. So very, very powerful way of doing things there, and we're looking forward to really helping this particular client with some dramatic service level improvements and some cost reductions as well as we go through. So that was all I was going to say, and I promised you 5 to 10 minutes, and I think I've hit that. If you have any questions on that, those are my contact details there, and of course you can get them, I believe, from us later on. But please do reach out if you have any questions that you want to talk directly about. But Marcella, I think I can now hand back over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, Alex and Gary, thank you so much for the presentation. Before we dive into a Q&A with our panel, I would like to share a second poll with you guys. I know there are a few people joining us from their mobile. No worries, probably you have some issues to look at this question. For everyone who is able to fill it in, we are interested in, do you think your company or organization will benefit from implementing process automation solutions? Please fill in your answer and we will share the results in a second. See, lots of people are filling it in, that's good. All right. Okay, excellent. Got the same amount of people filling it in, so I will close the poll and I will share the results. So Gary and Alex, this is your business case, I think.
Absolutely.
Right, good. Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely the way that we expected it. Lovely.
Good. All right. Thank you. I will share my screen a bit with you as well as we dive into the last few minutes. So you've now heard 2 presentations and a lot of information, and I was wondering if there were any questions from the participants who are joining this call. If so, feel free to come off mute and ask your question to either Alex or Gary. Just wait a sec, I hadn't had any questions in the chat, so let's just wait. Otherwise, I have a few questions, so no worries. Okay, if you do have any questions, please feel free to just shout out. I have a question for the panel. So Julie, you will join the panel as well. So if you are able to give any answers to the questions I have, please feel free to dive in and jump in. So a lot of organizations always tend to want to start really with these new kind of either implementations or new ways of working where RPA and this automation anywhere process fits in pretty well. Looking at best practices, what do you think is an example of a best practice to start as quickly as possible?
I'll jump in. Right. Oh, you go. You go, Julie.
Oh, well, for me, putting on my contact center hat, it would really be a lot of what Alex had already shown, where there are so many processes that the contact center needs to look at and see whether it really needs somebody, a human being, or it could be automated, and it could be, you know, be a robotic process. For example, in the current situation where we are now, we really need to look at that, because contact centers are very much looking at customer satisfaction as the metric to bring in revenue. And so if that can be factored in, as also Gary mentioned, NPS is so important for them, then I think an ROI would be easier for the contact center if they put that all in as part of getting that solution.
Great. Anything to add, Gary or Alex?
Yeah, I think specifically from the point of view of a contact center, I mean, we come across a lot of discussion around cost savings and that kind of thing, but I think contact centers, you're absolutely right, Julie. You know, NPS is probably one of the key measures here, and it's actually quite an easy measure to monitor as well. So you can look at the NPS at the start of these kind of projects and at the end, and you can usually get a pretty clear idea as to what you've done has been successful. So yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Lovely. Just to add to that, in fact, the maturity of New Zealand and Australia is quite high, especially in terms of the IT adoption or technology view, which gives the region of upper hand, right? You understand and you are able to be more tech savvy to be able to take this easily. What's most important is to find those low-hanging fruits initially, because that's where you will find success, okay, easily. And you will not have to break and fix everything to get that implemented. Many a times, as I was mentioning, right, you get into Lean Six Sigma models to be able to try and make the processes extremely efficient. But with robotics, what happens is that it gives a good mix to be able to make it much more seamless flow, okay? And that's why I believe that you need to start, build up a team, and then get into something called as, public view of how they look at automation. Give the authority to people, citizen development within the frontliners, because their pain is known to them really well. And they would be able to find, you do botathons, etc., to be able to give them an idea of how it is done, and for them to be able to try and put up ideas of what are the areas that could be easily catered to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. There is one question for Paul writing coming in through the chat. Are there any good case studies from New Zealand in regards to RPA?
Yes, there are. And there are use cases in public sector, private sector, across departmental split as well. So we can look at them within finance, within HR, within service delivery, that kind of stuff. So absolutely, Paul, there are. And I'd be very happy to provide something that's a bit more kind of tailored to your particular industry. So really happy to come back to you on that.
Excellent. All right. Julie, you mentioned the ROI in the answer you gave on the first question, and that kind of made me think, like, what is the best way, according to you, to measure the ROI?
Well, some people don't even go into this because they always think right away, oh, it's too expensive, it's too big a project. So I think what's important would be it was shown in both presentations where you really get the people involved into looking at what the customer would be going through. So I would probably go through a customer journey mapping and then look at current challenges that a customer is facing, and then what the cost would be by losing a customer perhaps. And so what the cost would be in retaining that customer through a solution like this. So that is probably the way to go, because right now people are always looking at saving on costs, but that it has to be at what loss or at what benefit.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Yeah.
And I think ROI also is contextual, depending on the various environmental considerations as well. So before we went into this unfortunate phase that the world's just been through, the ROI may have been something much more much different to how it is now. So now, for instance, maybe organizations are looking at that they have a reduced capacity within their company now because they've unfortunately had to let people go, but they're needing to re-emerge from this phase, and they're going to be doing that with reduced capacity. So the ROI may be around how are we going to increase our sales, how are we going to increase NPS, but doing that with a significantly decreased workforce or decreased contact center size as well. So it really depends on the organization and on the requirements and on the environment. There's a whole load of factors, but the point I was making before is that it's not just financial. And I think we've already established NPS is one of those, but there's a whole load of things where the ROI could be measured.
Right. Thank you, guys. I will leave it at this and go back to the participants. Is there anyone that has a question for the panel? If so, please come off mute and you can ask them yourself. This is the awkward part of doing remote sessions. Okay, I think this is it. Everyone, I think we've reached the end. Panel, I want to thank you so much for giving the answers to a few of our questions. Gary and Alex, thank you so much for the presentation and the information around how and what Automation Anywhere and RPA is. So really interesting to see it. For everyone who joined, thank you so much for joining. If you want to know more or want to have a conversation around how this could fit your organization, please reach out to Gary from Assurity. You find his contact details here, and we will make sure that we will send the details by email as well. As you probably all have seen, we've recorded this session, so we'll share it with everyone who joined the call today, so you can take a look again at both presentations and out how and where it can fit in your organizations. We also will send out a survey with some feedback questions for you as a participant that will be sent out today or early tomorrow. I would like you to all fill it in. It will help us to understand the market better and the requests. Panel again, Gary, and Alex and Julie, thank you so much for doing this and providing us with more knowledge and insight around this.
Can I just jump in there? I do have a question before we go. So since the systems and automation, is there a way that the existing solution would be able to predict or see what clients are doing online, for example, like banking online, and going through different transactions with the business solution entities, which what they may be coming through to the contact center about.
Grant, sorry to interrupt, but we can hardly hear you. So I don't know if there's an option to...
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a bit better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just my question is, does this solution gather data from customers who would use the online products or online services, and then use that information to potentially predict or around what those customers might be doing next, or if they're calling through the contact center, or potentially be proactive around what they could offer to the customer? what the interactions or transactions they're engaging with online.
Did you get that panel?
I'm still struggling to hear, I'm afraid, Grant. Grant, can I say, I think it's just one of those situations where we just have a really bad line. Could I ask you, if you're happy to do it, I'm very happy to answer this on email. If you want to just email me that question, but we're really hard struggling to hear you at the moment. I'm not sure what the problem is there.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Grant. Sorry for that. All right. Is there anyone else who has the last question for the panel? All right, I take that as a no. Great. Okay, thank you all for joining. We will get back to you with a survey as mentioned. And I thank you all for joining and coming. And panel, thank you so much for your time and doing this to share your insights and knowledge around this. Thank you so much.
Thanks for hosting.
Thanks.
Thanks for hosting.
Julie, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thanks.